AMD Cloud Chronicles in association with CNBC-TV18.com.
Hello and welcome to AMD and CNBC-TV18.com present AMD Cloud Chronicles, a series of conversations where we focus on the ever-evolving cloud computing landscape and the massive changes that we've been seeing, and also achieving the right balance between security, costs, and workload performance. AMD is a global semiconductor company known for its innovative processors and graphic solutions. It was founded in the year 1969, and over the years it has established itself as a key player in the computing space. It designs and manufactures microprocessors, motherboards, chipsets, embedded processors, and also GPUs for various applications. In fact, with strategic collaborations with its partners, AMD has been delivering scalable, cost-efficient solutions that empower organizations to leverage the cloud space. And that is our focus on this episode of AMD Cloud Chronicles, optimizing cloud efficiency, balancing security, cost, and performance. And today I'm joined with a very special guest, Ms. Kamolika Gupta Peres, ex-MD, India South Asia ServiceNow, also ex-director at Google Cloud. She has led revenue growth, innovation, and partnerships across various companies. And through this episode, she will help us decode and understand how organizations can master cloud efficiency while balancing security, costs, and workload performance. So welcome to the show, Kamolika. It's great to have you here with us.
Thank you, Ruchira. It's an absolute pleasure to join you today.
Great. So let me begin by understanding from you, what are the big changes that you've seen in the cloud computing space? Of course, there are, we know, various trends that we've been seeing. There's increased uptake. There's constantly evolving needs from the consumer. So from your experience, what are the three key learnings?
Yeah, it's a great question because, cloud computing, in a sense, even a few years ago, it was something that, companies were doing as a way of exploring what this new technology means, right? I think we're way past that now, right? So we're talking about cloud computing really becoming mainstream. And, right now, any deployment decision, I think, involves a decision on whether it should be on cloud, and that can very well be, public or private or hybrid, but it's very much a cloud-related decision that an organization does before deciding on where the new technology goes. So I think cloud is, like I said, it's pretty much mainstream. I think with this whole journey that organizations have taken on the cloud, there have been quite a few significant learnings that have actually come up. Number one is that, cloud represents a shift of, as you talked about, the efficiency side of things, it's a shift of CapEx into OpEx for the organization, right? So the management of cloud spend, therefore, becomes a very, very critical thing for all organizations to do to make sure they're using the right technology, to make sure they're deploying the right applications in the right way, and to really be able to have that whole financial operations around cloud happening in a very robust manner, right? Second is the whole issue about, or the whole aspect of security and compliance, right? So there's, of course,
also extremely difficult and stringent.
Absolutely, right? So there's security, of course, which is really something that the organization wants to ensure. There's compliance requirements that come from sometimes industry regulatory bodies. And as organizations, they have to ensure that whatever they deploy on the cloud is really being able to live up to these expectations on the security and compliance side, right? And again, this is a journey because, the requirements on security and compliance keep evolving. And therefore, for cloud providers and organizations, they have to keep evolving their footprint to ensure that they're able to keep up to speed with it. The other thing that I would say is a sort of a trend that we are seeing is, of course, the whole question on sustainability. How does an organization really manage its overall footprint from a carbon footprint perspective when it comes to deployments on cloud or on-premise, right? And these days there are tools that organizations can use to look at this, and this is becoming, a more of a conversation, a more center stage conversation on how sustainable technology services can be delivered to an organization and its customers.
Definitely. But tell me from your own experience, any plans for repatriation to on-premises or private cloud? Because that's, again, a big question, which kind of cloud computing platform to choose?
That's right. No, and I think it's a very topical question because whenever one talks about cloud, the whole issue of repatriation comes up. So as we said, cloud has, of course, been moved mainstream, right? We see the growth of the cloud business, 23% odd year on year in India itself. And so clearly it's something that people are adopting, across the board. However, some organizations, having done a migration to cloud, may decide that certain workloads, while they are thriving on the cloud, certain other workloads, and they may be sensitive in nature, maybe confidential in nature, may benefit from, let's say, a public cloud deployment, or maybe hybrid, where you have a on-premise deployment, but you use the power of cloud for sudden scaling that may be required, right? I think organizations are going through the journey. They will all have their own individual footprints based on their requirements. So while repatriation is not, I would not say a mainstream trend, but there could be instances where an organization takes an intelligent decision to repatriate based on their business needs.
Yes, and it is catching up, maybe.
Yes, yes.
All right, great. So do you see any tangible benefits, of cloud in delivering updated performances by using new gen processors?
Yeah, so I think, the whole new generation processors have opened up a real window of opportunities for people to decide what they want to implement and how they want to implement their cloud, right? So, of course, the large organizations such as AMD, who are really powering the innovation in this area, are really coming up with chips that are more efficient, that are more, can handle more workloads, and really therefore give the organization the option to do more on cloud, right? So I think a way of really choosing what workloads you want to put on what kind of applications need to run and be supported by which processor is again an intelligent decision based on the variety and choice and the innovation that we have in the processor market today.
Great. And what is your view on sustainability? How do you see sustainability as a matrix for on-premises or on cloud?
Yeah, it's a very important matrix, absolutely. Because if you really think about it, if you have dedicated computing power, let's say for an application, rather than, let's say, on cloud, where you can actually scale up or scale down that power depending on what and when needs to be used, cloud intrinsically seems to be the more efficient option from a sustainability perspective. Rather than many organizations having their own server farms, you're effectively having a common server farm that you're using, which is basically optimizing between different workloads, right? So clearly, cloud has the more sustainable answer. But as our data centers grow in size, and as, of course, cloud computing takes up more and more power, and we're seeing it with the advent of AI, a real need to search for greener sources of power, a real need to look at how do we really manage this energy demand is going to be very, very topical conversation, in everything that gets discussed on cloud and AI. So absolutely something that needs to be center stage in the discussion.
Great. So Kamolika, since we are discussing, balancing costs with security, what are your thoughts on, when one is really arriving at the egress cost as a part of the total cost of operations versus on-premise deployment?
Yeah.
What is your view on that?
Yeah, again, a great question. And I think, egress is something that I think everybody needs to be mindful of when managing their cloud costs. So if I'm looking at, data moving between applications, so an egress can be calculated based on the amount of data that moves and the egress rate that is being charged by the cloud provider, right? The thing is that, this is, of course, estimated at the beginning of taking any cloud service, but it may not remain the same. It may change depending on
time,
how businesses are changing and how applications are changing. So to be able to monitor that and to be able to understand how it may move in the future is very, very critical. We have cloud providers that give different models for egress. So you can, of course, have a conversation with your cloud provider to see what's the best model for you. But as opposed to an on-premise deployment where you may not have to pay egress, but you have to then have the regular maintenance and operation and the overall, resources that actually look at, the deployment of your applications on a day-to-day basis. They have other charges, which then, of course, become a part of your TCO. So it's a question of really looking at the total cost of ownership across both, but all elements need to be tracked on a regular basis to be able to be efficient.
Fair enough. So, AI is another big conversation that is dominating every space, and AI is a mainstay in our space, of course. So what are the plans or use cases that you have deployed in your previous organizations?
Yeah, so I think AI is again something, and of course Gen AI, let me put it this way. So AI was always something that I think organizations were working with. With the advent of Gen AI, now the interest around AI and all the things that it can possibly do, especially when you take them together with things like, data processing or data at scale, IoT and the whole industry, 4.0 technologies, the possibilities become very, very vast. So I
pretty
think,
endless. Yes.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we've been seeing AI use cases across the board. One of the areas where AI is really having a lot of impact is in the whole area of customer service, because there you're really having more and more workflow-driven, agentic AI responses that are actually being now devised for customers. We are having AI being used in banks, for example, where you have a lot of data processing. Yes, absolutely, and needs to be done at scale, and some intelligent decisioning, maybe around loan processing and areas like that where AI can be used. You have areas in healthcare, for example, where you have AI-driven diagnostics that can be done, let's say on retinopathy, like Google is doing, to be able to really diagnose diseases at an earlier stage, right? So I think the whole area of customer service, as I mentioned, will again undergo a huge change with AI. There are huge potential of AI. There are questions to be resolved in each of these, so it's not a very easy solve or a very apparent solve, but I think it's at a very, very exciting stage where everybody's taking those learning journeys to find out exactly what AI can do. And the interesting thing is that vast processing power of AI is really brought to the organizations through cloud, because without that whole cloud strength in the infrastructure, it would not be easy for any organization to be able to leverage that.
Definitely. And do you see the need, or do you feel the need for more silicon diversity when it comes to GPUs?
Yes, I absolutely think so. No, silicon diversity is extremely important. I think first of all because at the end of the day, Ruchira, no organization wants to be in a situation of lock-in to a particular source or to a particular vendor, right? So I think therefore, exploring a diverse set of options when it comes to the silicon footprint is absolutely important. We've all seen, with COVID-19 and the whole geophysical shocks, how any kind of supply from any kind of part of the world can get disrupted, right? So to have silicon diversity, to have it, for different workloads or for different kind of services running on cloud, extremely important and actually a very key part of the technology strategy of any organization.
Sure. So we were also discussing TCO earlier. So how important is OpenStack hardware or software ecosystem, when it comes to the overall TCO?
Yeah, so OpenStack per se is a platform which, of course, offers cloud services with open source hardware and software, right? Now, in a sense, yes, I would say it definitely fulfills a gap in the market because you have license-free hardware and software available where you can actually build your cloud services on. The only flip side of that is that whereas you get stacks from, let's say, an AWS or a Google or a Microsoft, which are obviously pre-integrated. So all the elements of the stack really work very seamlessly together. When you're talking about a bunch of open source software or hardware, it may not work in the same way as seamlessly as, let's say, what comes from the major hyperscalers. So that's the trade-off. Obviously, you get lower costs in terms of licensing, but there is work to be done in terms of integration.
Yes. So again, it's a very strategic decision to be made. Great. So, when we discuss partnerships, so how important are partnerships with AMD and AWS or Google Cloud in helping businesses really achieve more with less or optimize costs and balance it with security and increase efficiency? Yeah,
partnerships are really important. Like, of course, cloud services as such are available on the tap. You can absolutely go and start using cloud services, at the drop of a hat from any of these vendors. But the reality is, if your organization has a certain roadmap, right, a partnership conversation helps partners like AMD, like an AWS or GCP or Microsoft Azure to understand your requirements in depth and maybe come up with something that's more crafted for your requirement, right, based on your longer-term roadmap.
Customized as per your organization.
Absolutely. And I think for organizations, very, very important, therefore, to get into maybe longer-term, more strategic conversations with these organizations to be able to steer the joint roadmap in that direction. Because the organization also gets a view of what the roadmap of the technical service provider is, right? So partnerships, as much as you can, put them in place, absolutely fundamental to keeping the technology on track.
All right. So while you're selecting a cloud computing solution, how important is the make or the specification of the processor?
I would say it's very important, right? So, in the beginning, when people started using cloud service, it was really about saying that, it's supposed to just function on tap and I'm supposed to just get the computing power that I want. But now I think organizations have now woken up to the kind of processor choices that are actually underlying that cloud service that you're getting. For example, if you want to look at something very efficient and you want to look at high processing speeds, you may choose something from the AMD line, of processors to actually service your requirements.
So as your closing comment, tell us an actionable strategy for organizations who are trying to emulate, your journey for balancing security, cost, and workload performance?
That's a great question, Ruchira, and I'm not surprised that you've kept that for the last. So I think, for any organization that's on its journey, embracing new technology is really important, because I don't think we have an option to say, I won't take that step and I won't embrace cloud, or I won't embrace a new technology that's out there. But balancing cost, because cost, of course, the importance of an ROI for anything that you invest in IT is very, very important for, for the organization to understand where to deploy its investments, right? The importance of cost and, of course, of security. Security is paramount, because a single security outage or a single security incident can cost the organization far more than any other consideration, right? So I think balancing these are important, which is the reason why I think technology decisions today are really migrating from something being decided in the IT department to really boardroom decisions, right? And therefore, longer-term partnerships with technology services providers are important to be able to manage these things optimally for the organization in its journey, right?
And CTOs also are moving beyond their traditional roles.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's really, really important, because today, how you serve a customer is technology, how you manage a supply chain is technology, how you see your management information and insights is technology. It's really the underlying foundation of a lot of the organization's activities. So decisions about technology literally influence, your organizational direction or behavior over the next 2 or 3 years. So I think very, very critical that it is a boardroom level decision.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Kamolika, for sharing your valuable insights. And clearly, whether it's cloud computing, emerging technologies, or managing costs, if organizations want to stay agile, they need to optimize all three and also maintain the cloud infrastructure while focusing on scalability, cost efficiency, and security. That's it from all of us here, and thanks for watching.
AMD Cloud Chronicles in association with CNBC-TV18.com.